So I set a piece of floral foam, a whole piece of floral foam, on a piece of polyfoil and trimmed it down to best fit the shape of the container. It's basically an oblong design, so it's like long and kind of skinny. And then I just was able to push it in there. When you get it situated, then you're going to want to cut off the excess polyfoil because you don't want that showing. But the polyfoil keeps the water from leaking out of the basket. First flower that I inserted was the lilies. I took 2 lilies and inserted them on opposite corners. And this kind of goes along with like an oblong design, meaning like what you do to one side, you do to the other, and it should be a design that's able to be viewed from all sides. So you can see from one corner to the next. They're just opposite corners. I then took the stalk and did almost the same thing, but in the 2 other corners. And I did have to take some of like the petals off the stalk in order for it to be short enough to go into the basket. So you'll see me measure and pull some of the petals off and measure and pull some of the petals off. But you just do that until you get the right length. And then you're repeating the process and just creating another corner to corner implied line. Next process I did was greening down. So this is a Thanksgiving basket. So it's going to have tons of greenery, different types of greenery. I started with the leather leaf just to kind of shadow and reinforce some of those like implied lines and cover some of the mechanics, meaning like the foam and the rim of the container. I did treat this like a symmetrical design. So what I did to one side, I did to the other. Being that this is a basket, I have to maneuver some of the greenery, as you can see, and kind of split it between the handle so it's not too crazy. You do not want to go like overfill the basket because it'll be too much, but you do want to green down and cover most of your foam. And so you'll see here I start with leather leaf. I use some seeded eucalyptus and I also use some pittosporum, but I treated this like a symmetrical design. So what I did to one side, I tried to do to the other. once my design looked like a bush, I decided it was time to go in and add some different types of smaller flowers. So I started with the blue thistle just to add some nice texture. And again, guys, what I did to one side, I just turned around and did to the other. So made it really easy, took a lot of the guesswork out of it. Just make sure you're not inserting a bunch of petals into the foam. I did have to take a lot of petals off of those. You can see I then took and inserted some Viking mums. These were a nice touch. I tried to make sure that there was that one material all over. So like you'll see that longer piece of Viking mum I put, and later on I'll end up putting some shorter pieces right up top. But what you do to one side, turn your basket and just do to the other, and before you know it, it'll start looking symmetrical and filling in very nicely. So now that I have a good amount of mass flowers in my design, I went ahead and added in my filler flower, which is for this design wax flower. And I didn't want to overdo it because there is a lot of flowers in this design and you don't want to crowd them and make them lose their individual like personal space, if you will. So I just kind of turned it and found maybe some really green areas or some areas that may still have some foam showing, but try to keep it throughout the whole design. So down by the stalk, which is the longest part of your design, make sure you have some wax flower. The rim of your container, up towards the top, towards the handle, you just want it sprinkled in everywhere. You will see I did go back and add in some blue thistle, kind of complete. There's like a small implied line of blue thistle right up top, and it just made it look more full and intentional. I did take a second filler, which is the Solidago, and sprinkled it into our design because yellow gold is more of the fall color. So I just wanted to sprinkle it in there. I tried not to use too big of the bold colored ones. I tried to use more of like the green, yellow ones, and sprinkled them in just to give it some nice texture and really kind of tie in the color scheme between the lilies and the Solidago. We're getting towards the end of our design, so just take a look around, see if you have any holes, see if you could add anything to make it more symmetrical, more eye-appealing, and if not, then you're good to go.